Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back here on the industry stage at the Formnext 2024. I'm super excited because we are starting our first panel on day number 3, and it will be very special, I can promise already. We are focusing on a topic here in this panel that is something that affects all of us, but not only in our industry, but also in all industry. We are talking about skills and talents today. This year, so many things are different at Formnext, and we want to do that on Career Day as well. So instead of falling into the usual lamentations, let me point that out, our aim is to explore a new and innovative approach to inspire people about additive manufacturing. And you know, I'm not at all an expert in this, so we gathered together an excellent lineup of experts. So let me introduce our guests in our panel discussion. To my left, there is Hayden. We heard him already in a speech today. Hayden Kinlan, you're a Senior Program Manager, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or the MIT. Great to have you here, Hayden.
Thank you.
Then, next, Dr. Irene Skibinski. You are Project Manager at VDMA. We're talking a little bit about that more later. Thank you so much for being here, Irene, again, in this important topic. Then we have Vadi Yaret. Is that correct, Vadi?
That's true, yeah.
Can I say it that way? You are a researcher at the Institute for Manufacturing Technologies of Ceramic Components and Composites at the University of Stuttgart. And then, I'm happy to have you here, guys. So we have Dave Interman. He's executive producer at 3D Printing Nerd, and many, many more, that's for sure. And last but not least, and you know this guy, because if you have watched his show on Monday, you should have seen him. I've seen only 2 minutes. That's a little bit the pity.
2 minutes out of 3.5 hours? Come on.
2 minutes were already exciting, so a big applause for Joe Delling as well. So he's the host of 3D Printing Nerd, and I think all of you know this already. So as I said in the very beginning, I want to do something different today, and I hope you are with me. So I want to create with all of you a plan how we can spark talents interested in additive manufacturing, or how we spark talents interest in additive manufacturing and draw them into our secret community, let's put it that way, and they will never want to leave. That's the plan, okay? So I want to start a virtual collaboration with all of you, and we can build upon in the future. That's a little bit the target for this panel discussion. And to kick it off, I said, let's do the same question for all of you with a little bit of variation. So Irina, we start with you. You are working at VDMA, and probably you can point out how can you contribute to the topic of talent acquisition and fostering enthusiasm?
So in the VDMA in general, we have a lot of programs on talents and skills. So what we are doing now is we hop on those existing programs with additive manufacturing topics. And I think we are in a quite easy position because AM is really attractive for a lot of young people. So normally, it's really easy to get the kids and the students on board.
Okay.
And then they with their enthusiasm, they also bring their knowledge into the companies where they go to.
So we come later to the point how your network partner or your members see the current situation, but let's first go over to Vahid. So you combine interactive lessons, that's what we discussed in our briefing session, with a YouTube presence. I watched it, super interesting, very well produced in my opinion, super nice. So what would be your contribution? Would it be more on the media side or more in your interactive lessons? What are you actually doing to attract talents?
I figured that you can inspire people through videos. Anyone who's on YouTube knows that attention rates higher than 10% are almost impossible. They're very difficult. So most people that watch up to 10% of your video. And to inspire someone is good, but to make them into a skillful talent that would be committed to work every day in additive manufacturing is something else.
Yeah.
And I figured that making a YouTube video is great as a starter, but committing to it through training, through working with students, like my students there, you can raise your hand, say hi, on a day-to-day basis, and inspiring them through continued vision and having people to be, inspiring people or teaching people how to be patient, I think is what's needed. And this comes with time, with training. That's why I'm focused there these days.
Very good. I mean, Joel, you invested quite some time in the industry and building up your channel in order to inspire people.
A little bit here and there, yeah.
A little bit. So I just told David in our upfront conversation, I looked into your videos, and you know what I like about that? It's so easy to follow. It's not that someone who's, and because I'm not an additive expert at all, yeah, but if I follow your videos, I'm totally in, and you catch me right away, and it's more about I learn something new without being an expert. That might be your contribution, right?
You know, that's a really interesting way of putting it, and a lot of what we try to do on 3D Printing Nerd is rather than instruct and teach, we want people to learn along with us. I have a passion for this, and we have a skill set that allows us to formulate certain topics in a way where instead of me saying, here's what you need to do to be successful, I can say, I'm learning how to do this. To be successful, learn along with me. And when talking with building skills, I think being able to bring someone along for the ride rather than telling them what to do brings more people in.
For sure, for sure. David, we take our point that we discussed at the last one because it rounded up, in my opinion. So Hayden, if I hear MIT, honestly, I was thinking about going to MIT to follow one of the programs. But for a beginner, it sounds challenging because MIT is such a big, intimidating name. Let's put it that way. Don't get me wrong. Yeah? It's rather positive feedback. Yeah. So. I'm sure you have your ways of attracting new students, but not only students, also skills. So what is your contribution? What are your initiatives, and what are you currently doing in that topic?
Well, we're doing a lot mainly on the professional side. We have online programs, in-person programs, and so on. And being intimidated is feedback we get very often.
Yeah.
But it's a good point that courses need to be accessible to beginners, and so we've come up with some sort of tips and tricks. We select very particular software, have glossaries of information and so on to try to make the material accessible.
Yeah, and I just observed a little bit your speech, and you were talking about this 12 weeks program, which is perceived too long. So are there shorter ones that, let's say, one that has watched a video of Joel says, okay, I want to step into that industry and get, let's say, first overview. Would that be available at MIT?
Online in the future. That's the direction that we're moving towards. Shorter, bite-sized modules, things that are more accessible. In person, definitely. We have a 5-day course that we run every summer.
Okay.
And we've had high school students come to that, as well as folks who are at the end of their career.
Okay, great to see that. So, David, we discussed one thing, and I think this is, let's say, the common ground, the basis we should start with. What do we need to do in order to tell an attractive story? Let's put it that way.
I mean, I think when you're trying to tell a story, you have to really think about the audience you're speaking to first, and understand, and also work your way backwards. Think about, like, what is your goal, and then deconstruct that backwards and say, how do I get here? You know, like we were talking about economics earlier, it's the same thing with an ROI. Like, what's the return on the investment for the viewer and that story? Is it going to be something that they're going to connect with? And is it something that's going to perpetuate that learning and that overall, you know, place in the industry for them, and find out what they want to do? Because when you look at additive manufacturing, it's a part of all of our lives in every respect now, whether people know it or not. And it's going to filter into it even more, and then some people need to use a whole bunch of it, and some people don't. And I think it's really about understanding those and not trying to force people to get engaged in things that they don't need to. You know, and really understand that, like, you know, here's the story, here's what we're doing, and it could be a vignette, it could be small, it could be these little bite-sized pieces, but it could also be something that's a multiple series where they're learning, like you were saying, modules. Like, we create series in the show where it's multi-part series and people learn across the way from all sorts of different stuff, from big, giant industrial to smaller, you know, machines that don't require a lot of learning, but you still want to break out those steps and let everyone feel like they have a voice. And I think the most important thing in storytelling is you never, ever talk down to your audience.
Yeah.
Never, ever do that. Meet them on their level and understand that everyone learns and engages at their own pace. And if you can respect that, I think you can tell some compelling stories.
Mm-hmm. Well, one issue we were facing when we were talking, David, was the thing that sometimes an additive, and that's a little bit the mood we had here on this year's Formnext, the story cannot be told till the end. You know what I mean? So we have a lot of industrialization going on. We see that, and we can inspire people only by technology. But sometimes people, especially in difficult times, they look for the ones where they see quick and easy success. I know that you did this survey, Irene, on the mood of the members. So is it right now in these difficult times even more complicated to attract talents because they don't see the things running through the end? That means already successful business cases compared, I don't know, to traditional industries like automotive, etc. Is that an issue?
Well, we ask our member companies every half a year, what's the most relevant topics for you? And we ask, is skills or lack of skilled workers a relevant topic for you? And 2 years ago, a quarter of our member companies said yes, and now it's reduced to 10%. So for them, there are other topics that seem to become more relevant and more important for them.
Let me show some figures more, because that would underline your point, and then you can keep on explaining that. Have a look here. That's what Nick was providing us with this slide. You can see it here as well in the preview monitor if you want. So what I think is really interesting, what you see here is that the ratio dropped or increased, the way you look at it, 120 applicants to one open position. So this is a difficult situation. So as you said, probably it's no longer an issue at all, isn't it?
It seems to be less relevant for our members. I think still it's still important to improve the quality of education. It can be further education, apprenticeship, and I think we still have to work on getting really good skilled workers.
Yeah.
And also we know that that the demographic change will not help us with solving the problem. So we have to work, and we are always there are other industries that also want to attract those talents. So additive manufacturing has an advantage because it's really attractive, but we still have to work to keep up with other industries.
But that brings me back to you. And so I said it's intimidating or to apply for MIT, even if it's a course, because you think it's super complicated. So we need on the one side, we need skills. It's not only about young talents we're talking all the time. As the demographic change, I mean, we need to attract as well the over 50 people, right? I mean,
wait, did that graphic say there's less jobs in additive now?
No. There are more people that apply for a job than job offerings. So the ratio of applicant is increased heavily compared to the open. Okay. It's not less job opportunities. It's just there are more people on one job opportunity.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, there are less job opportunities. That's what.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities in additive. I see tons of opportunities in companies looking for people to specialize in it, and I think there's actually a lack of people for it. I think there's so many people that want to use it, especially in the small business industry, that needs to be addressed. And there's so many companies that want to bring additive in, but they can't find people to do that. And I think that's I think that's the issue. And I think even in universities, like we work with different schools in the States and programs, and they say, they had an additive program, and then, the teacher left, or someone does, and no one knows how to use the machine. Yeah. And then sitting there, and it's like, we need to do more of this. I think there's a lot of opportunities out there in that respect.
Yeah, to exactly that point I want to come in terms of, Hayden, you are, just with the name MIT, and it's a university, you probably attract more the ones that are already educated in a certain way. And on the other side, Joel, I mean, you are attracting the whole variety of people, right? I mean, they are the makers, probably the enthusiast, the nerd, as you call yourself as well.
I hear from everybody, all the way from people in grade school who have a consumer machine and they're happy to print a little Pokemon and they show me, all the way up to seasoned veterans in C-suite level positions who have thanked me because we've brought a light to their industry. And so we've seen it all.
Because I'm totally with David, and that's what I want to ask you. I mean, you are like, they are the big industry leaders that soak all the people in, but the little companies, they don't have the resource anymore then. So I think it's a different picture depending on which size of industry you're looking at or size of companies, right, David?
I think so, but I also think that people are missing a huge section of industry, and that's like auto shops, mechanics, dentists, small businesses. They want to bring these in. Like, there's so many people out there that can, you know, the way also the machines have changed. Like, additive changes exponentially, and you have machines now where you don't need 7 Stratasys machines and 4 EOS machines in your company. You need maybe 1 or 2 to do a specific element, but then you can supplement it with all these other things because the materials are more accessible now, the machines are better, you can do so much more with it, and then now all these people can bring additive in their spaces that they haven't had before. And that's kind of what I'm seeing. And then that's, you know, people I think go, oh, it's either big additive or it's, you know, consumer kids with toys. But that's a huge misconception, because what we see on a daily basis, the people that talk to us when we go out in there, it's a mix of both. Like, we've worked with companies that move oil and sand or do the sewer systems for the city of Vancouver in Canada, and they bring in a Pantheon machine and it changes their whole business model.
Yeah.
You know, they're not bringing in a $4 million machine, they're bringing in a machine that costs under $30,000.
Which is crazy, by the way. The story is crazy at all. Yeah,
It's bonkers.
If I can just maybe say, I think when it comes to like professional training, folks who are experienced already, they've graduated from a university, it makes a lot of sense to have dedicated training, like I was saying, on specific additive modules. When it comes to formal education, especially for like in the US, we have 2-year schools, or, you know, vocational schools predominantly. I feel like there's really a sweet spot that needs to be developed, which is trying to educate the next generation of what we call technologists, folks who sit between, they're not just an operator, they don't have an engineering degree though, but they're capable of understanding, you know, first principles, diagnosing problems on the shop floor, and being able to adapt to advanced technology, if it's additive or if it's some special finishing technology, you know, whatever it may be. In the US, and I don't know about the rest of the world, we have a big problem with the manufacturing workforce.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to think about how do we empower young folks, not necessarily in one particular technology, but to give them foundational skills that allow them to adapt and grow a career, regardless of what industry sector, what manufacturing process they end up working with on a daily basis.
But then comes to me the next question, right? Probably you can say that. I mean, when the students come to you, they already decided, right? Or are they still don't know where to go afterwards?
I think a student, just like any other person, are never decided.
Yeah.
They're like always open. Now there's thousands of opportunities for them everywhere in the world. What inspires them, I think, and transforms them into the talent that companies need, the skillful people, are the environment in which they learn, how much we provide, how much we support, the people they work with, how we inspire them, how friendly we are, how easygoing we are. Science has a bad reputation, unfortunately, of being complicated, sometimes boring, especially universities. So they can always choose to do something else. And they always get inspired by videos like Jules. But at the same time,
Good job.
what we need nowadays are people with a long attention span, to be patient enough to go every day to work, be excited and inspired internally, not just by the external factors or the profit they're getting. And to sit down and really analyze the data again and again and again to come up with these great ideas. This is what we try to.
But then I see, like, and this is what we can work here in this panel discussion. I mean, let's say I watch Joel, and I say I'm super inspired. I was maker and I tried it out a little bit, no technical background, young person, let's say 14 years old. We are not talking about like already educated in it. And that's what you said. I mean, we need to bring them into technology. So now I'm addicted, Joel. I'm with you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm into that topic. And now I decide, okay, I want to keep on learning. And now I come from this nowadays very attractive approach of easy to consume, always inspiring, funny, as well as not only like very technical. Then I come to university and visit a course. Isn't that like...
It's fairly typical. I think one thing that I think Arena maybe mentioned apprenticeships, or someone mentioned apprenticeships, and in the U.S. we don't do this that much, but I think to your point about how do you get people to show up every day and do the diligent but sometimes frustratingly straightforward work, if there's real impact associated with it, if you're working on an application for a company, for example, rather than just working on a research project where you're not sure where it might go, that's one way that we've found can be very effective in not just communicating what work will be like and getting folks excited about work, but also allowing them to manage that indecision that you were mentioning, right? Starting to sniff out, is this the type of job I want, or is there a different sector, a different role that's better for me?
But again, the question, I mean, let's say I'm more like, I have 1,000 of fancy ideas in my head, what I want to introduce. And then why it comes to the point where you have to work constantly on that, and you visit university, and then you are in the course. And I mean, I know what you do in order to inspire students, otherwise they wouldn't be here. Yeah? So does university or education needs to change also in their like entertainment offering? Don't get me wrong, but this is it. I mean, if you tell a story, David, right? I mean,
well, yeah. Well, what's I can't think of his name. From Ireland, and they have the program right now that we met him yesterday. We were talking about him. Tall guy, beard. They have the program.
Tall guy, beard.
Yes.
Tall guy, beard.
Do you know what I'm talking about? I cannot.
About.
If you're watching, I'm so sorry. I forgot your name. I have total brain fart. But they have a master's program at a university in Ireland in additive manufacturing, working toward a PhD in that. And they have a whole lab built around all of this, and they're taking those steps to really bring people into the space and recreate real-world situations that they would be using this in, and take those people that are inspired and do that. But also the other thing too is that the technology, especially if you look around here at the event, it's gotten so much easier to use. I mean, when I first started, Joel's been in additive way longer than I have. I've been in for what, 6 years maybe? Something like that. You've been doing it longer than I have. But I mean, I was leveling with a piece of paper on my first machine and stuff like that. Now that's not even a thing, a thought. These machines work, and they do that. And I feel like the machines and the technology and everything has gotten so much better that the barrier to entry and the accessibility to the technology is far greater than it's ever been. And I think that's also something that's happening exponentially too that we have to consider.
Wait, let me jump in here, because I think we're approaching things at a much later level than should be. If we're talking about getting skills to people necessary in order to enter the job market, we need to focus on 8-year-olds. We can't expect kids and young people to adapt to an archaic learning structure, which we went through, but only because we had to, because that was the only way. But I've heard the term YouTube University way more times over the past year than I have even before that. And I think approaching the learning about additive manufacturing needs to be less gatekept. We can't gatekeep it within this typical learning structures. I think what we need to do, like you said, when we talk about story, is approach them at their level. We have massively successful science creators on short form content platforms disseminating physics and math and astronomical phenomenon and additive manufacturing even. And so these people, these educators, while the university structures are fantastic, I think if we can utilize the technology that even younger kids are using in order to consume, and we give them content that is not just learning, but learning in the way that they learn best, then we've kind of peppered a whole generation to come up through the school systems excited about additive manufacturing, and then being a part of clubs at school, being a part of the STEAM class, being a part of engineering principled things at the school. And then we will find people, it's because they they have a preference for this now, then they go to the universities, I think, better prepared. And it's not like trying to drag kids there. We're giving them an opportunity that they're excited to have.
Yeah, it's not that giving a try. It's more like I decided on going to university, right?
Right.
So Hayden, how is, I mean, I totally agree with catching the 8 years, because this is the time we will need to transform probably our education until then. Yeah. So are you already doing initiatives in like a more modern learning environment? Is that something that is happening already?
I mean, online platforms, we're doing things in AR, VR, to try to create hands-on experiences that are, scalable online. So there's definitely a lot of room for innovation in the way that courses are delivered. But I actually want to challenge what you said a little bit and just say, I don't think necessarily that the way people want to learn is the way that they learn the best. And this is one area that I think is very important, that a lot of educators, most educators overthink, is pedagogy, is learning science, is how can I actually distill information and get that to stick with someone. And that's one area I think we all could pay more attention to, and I mean myself as well. So what we tend to see is that excitement is not the limiting factor. And we have pretty fun courses. We have like our main undergraduate course in MECE is called the yo-yo course, and you make 50 yo-yos, and you mold parts, you print parts, you mill parts. People come to MIT just to take that course. But I said this in my talk, and I mean this, maybe this is like a very MIT point of view, but I think people learn the best through a little bit of stress and a little bit of pain. When you make a mistake and you say, that was horrible, I never want to do that again. And so, in our course is starting to make folks say, okay, instead of making 10 parts, now you have to make 100 parts. And you need to inspect those parts, and you need to make sure that those parts are conforming and diagnose process failures and so on. Maybe this is like too advanced for the level of discussion that we're talking about, but we see some really great results when we don't put too much stress on the students, but enough for them to really kick into gear and feel urgency. So again, maybe that's like a very MIT difficult point of view.
That's accords totally to learning psychology today, because they're the two factors. You need to transfer it into learning nuggets, defining your own speed, finding your own path, so being more like self-determined in your learning. And on the other side, at a certain point, put stress on it, because that's usually the time where people perform best. Yeah. So, but they have to learn something before. Yeah, otherwise, the stress is totally useless. So, Veit, I mean, you are in a very structured university in terms of, we are in Germany, so everything is very regulated. I don't know how is that on MIT, but I at least studied in Germany, so I know. Yeah. So, how can you transform your kind of teaching to get more to the kind of teaching that Joe mentioned?
Yes, I first want to say I totally agree with the fact that the stress generated by a project or a delivery or a failed part creates such an incredible learning experience. For everyone, I saw it in the lab. Those students are there, they can confirm. What was the question again?
No, how can you, with the very strict requirements you have, like adapt to the new learning psychology, if I call it that way, don't get me wrong. Yeah.
Yes. I think learning from videos or watching someone do something is one of the oldest way of learning.
Yeah.
That's how we imitate. That's how a human being learns. But this is, I think, an incomplete model. It's great. I learn myself from YouTube sometimes. But I realized, as a YouTuber as well, that to learn something, you can first watch someone do it. I think this is what Jules does. Mm-hmm. He goes and visits experts, like you, like us, or you're an expert by now. Yeah. Film what they do, and make people watch that, learn through watching. The thing is, you can learn through watching, but I can ask you, would you learn a skill better by doing it yourself and failing through it, or watching someone do it?
I think it's a combination, basically.
Yes.
So I'm totally with you. And this is what happens to me all the time. You see something on YouTube, let's say editing a video, for example, yeah? You say, okay, afterwards I do it myself, then you're sitting in front of this damn machine. And even if you follow it step by step, it's not the same. Yes. So you fail, and then you say, oh, I need to probably find my own way, my own adaptation. Yes. That's a little bit it.
Yes.
So learning or watching without doing is no learning. That's what we all agree.
And this really applies to complicated topics like developing
Yeah, exactly. You need to learn the software. You need to learn like doing a part and then taking your own experience out of it the way you do it. I'm totally with you.
Are we putting the cart before the horse? I'm sorry to interrupt if you were going to go to another question, but if we're talking about learning, we need to bring people to the learning. And so if I can, I agree with what you said about what I said, and I think perhaps we're missing something, because what we do at 3D Printing Nerd is inspire people to get motivated to do stuff. And so while we do have principles of teaching people things, the main goal is to give them that kick in the pants to go try it themselves and do it. And so there is that in-person learning element, but it's because there was something that inspired them to take that step. And so perhaps for the overarching thematic piece that we have here, it's part inspiration, and then that inspiration brings them into a learning environment.
I would like to add one more thing that we do to inspire young people is to show them career paths. So that's another topic that I'm just throwing in. So I think to show how the future of their work life might look like, or show them inspiring careers and project applications. So that's one thing that we can do, for example, to attract.
Let me come up with a vision, and I'll do this with David, okay? David, let's tell a story, okay? So my story would be in terms of getting a business case out of what we're talking here. So we catch them with Joel, and inspire them, starting with the 8 years. Let's take this as an entry level, And very important, we tell the story in total. So David says, okay, it's not enough to just attract them. We need to show them the career path. And this must be incorporated in any of the videos at a later stage, And this is where you should work together, in my opinion. So if I explore these videos, my first initial motivation might be to try it myself and to do the next step. But then if I want to see the movie till the end, I need a happy end, right, David?
Well, sure. I mean, that's kind of the thing that's really unique about what we've created in the show, is that it's not just, here's Joel with a new machine showing you how to do this. Because his experience is across the board, I mean, from software to hardware and all that stuff that led into getting into additive and that background, we'll go work with a company like Progressive Sealing, where they're out here and they're actually showing how additive is affecting the ROI of their business. And we make episodes about that and use cases to show these companies how they have had a business where they're a great use case, where they had a part that takes 8 hours to make through milling and everything that goes on with this really unique part. They brought in a machine that now takes an hour to make that part. They take the 7 hours, they reinvest that back into their company. We make an episode of the show showing that. And the episode we had before that was how to build this actual machine step by step. And it's a very complex machine. So we put all the pieces together and then, let that out there. But I think part of it is showing how it actually transforms the business. Not just you could go work in this field, but how if you get this skill set, you go through, you learn this and then you want to refine it and you go to MIT, you take these classes and you go through it. Now you get to be kind of a superhero and go work with these companies.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And go there and then get that skill and then you refine it, depend on what your expertise needs to be. But I think that there's so much availability of information that there's a lot of independent people out there. And then also you have to look at this, that there's a lot of closed ecosystems for these machines and stuff, and there's a lot of gatekeeping, but there's a whole nother world of open source that never gets talked about, and it's the core of what made all of this possible, and open source technology and the ethos behind that. I have a really cheesy saying, and I will make a t-shirt, and I say...
Don't say it.
I have to... anyway, it's goofy, but anyway, but no, I'm gonna say it. Open source, open hearts, right? You have to be open to the idea of it and connecting. It's cheesy, I'm cheesy, it's life. He has to deal with it all the time. But it's that aspect of connecting people to the technology and letting them feel like they're a part of it and they're a part of the story, so they feel invested in it. So they want to go on, they want to go to universities and take these paths, because MIT is going to have resources that other people are not going to have. And they're going to get the chance to be there and be able to not just work with the people, but they're going to have accessibility to other stuff like that. And then you look at like how, open source technology is making it accessible for everyone and saying, hey, here is all of this. We want you all to play with this and see what you can come up with. And I think that's part of the story that needs to be told as well too, because you're giving people multiple resources. It's not just one vertical.
Yeah, but then in the end, I mean, let me see. Let me take an example out of totally another field. Let's take Harvard and being a lawyer, for example. Yeah. So if you decide going that path, I mean, you're not thinking about how cool it would be to study in Harvard. You think about how cool it would be to wear a suit with a tie and to stand in front of people. I think that's a vision that people have. So my vision in additive, and that's totally accords with you, would be. So I'm standing right after being with you. I'm saving a patient's life because I learned how to use additive in order to put a new bone in it. You know what I mean? That would be my vision, yeah? And this is the movie we need to write.
I love that you said that. If I can pull on that thread a little bit, I do a lot of interviews for our coursework. We record the interviews, and one question I always like to ask folks is like, what was your light bulb moment? What got you excited about additive? And unless you're someone who's already been doing it for many years, the answer is never, I saw this new machine and the resolution was twice as good. Yeah. The answer is always, I saw this part, and that part transformed the way that that industry operator, like my story is I saw a 3D Systems marketing video, free shout out 3D Systems, where someone who had a cleft palate got reconstructive surgery enabled by additive, and at the end he takes a bite of an apple. And I think, wow, they've changed this child's life. This technology is transformative. And so I think additive can be an amazing educational tool, but maybe what gets people to get very excited is not the technology itself, but what amazing parts that we can make and how those affect their lives.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Irene, you mentioned one thing. You said in the survey, one of the results is that it's not the focus thing right at the moment. Due to the overall crisis, we have other problems to solve. But this would mean for me that this is probably the time to tackle this issue even more, because this is the time you probably get until it's increasing again, and then we have the same situation. Like, I imagine, let's say it's so positive as the survey says, in 2 years we're sitting in the same panel and saying, hey, we have the ratio of 2022 again. Yeah, we have 10 persons applying for a job for one job opportunity. So isn't now the time, and it wouldn't be something that you can recommend to your members, go and take these 4 guys, including you as a project manager then, and let's build up a story and start with the 8 years and catch them? Wouldn't be the time to do so?
I agree with you, yeah. So I would also think that the ratio will change again, and so now is the time to act. So we have the right people in 5 years, right? So I mean, the studying takes 4 or 5 years. Apprenticeship in Germany is around 3 years. So, yes, we should work on it, and we should tell our members, don't forget this topic. It's still important, and we still should invest in whatever way in this topic. So we don't sit here in 3 years and say, well, we are surprised.
Surprise, again, less people. Yeah, so, no, I think my motivation, and you see I'm quite motivated in the topic, is, I mean, I like the creative way, and honestly, right, I mean, we had this briefing conversation, and I heard your speech. It's so great to see what even universities, how they are developing into more agile constructions, you know? I mean, you are even changing, although this was the holy thing of having the strict student regulation and going through the exams and stuff. I think you are changing as well, making it more interactive, as White told us in the briefing call, being more focused on the customer, and the customer is a student, basically, being more creative in this. So it's happening to so much, but it would be so sad to see that we missed the opportunity of this time now, where we are where the lack of people is not the main issue. Now it's the time, in my opinion, to tackle it.
Well, but I think, and you can tell me if it's true, or at MIT maybe as well, that overall the engineering students decrease, right? So
overall they do.
So universities have to change to attract the new engineers.
So why is that, Hayden?
AI and machine learning and the salaries that they can get if they graduate with a degree in computer science versus mechanical engineering, just to be transparent. That's probably the largest driver. And I think this is to your point about showing folks the career path, is that students make decisions in what they want to learn, both as a function of what they like, but also as a function of what they're going to get out of it after they finish their degree program. And so if we, I don't know, maybe we need to pay additive engineers more. They're already pretty expensive, but having tried to hire them. But in any event,
that would then agree the points that Nick was presenting before with a salary review. And I'm not too much into that point, to be honest, because of course, you can be salary driven, and probably it's one of the main topics why we have a move now into the AI field. On the other side, I think if you are motivated and enthusiastic, it's always more worth than getting more salary. I don't know. Yeah. So I go with Joel to get the 8 years, of course. That would be great. So let's tell. Yeah.
I'd just like to answer Rene's question regarding this point from my perspective, from what I saw in the numbers. Sometimes the overall number of students in the mechanical engineering program could decrease, but certain fields within this program can actually increase in numbers. So some people might be more interested nowadays in additive manufacturing, and their numbers are increasing, while internal combustion engines might be decreasing, for example, because of electric cars.
Yeah.
So it's it's more detailed than just assuming the number of students is decreasing.
So we were talking all the time mostly about talents, okay? So we are tackling young persons, so we can skip now the 8 years. Let's go to the people over 50. Is that a target group you attract as well?
1000% yes.
Yes,
I get lots
right?
of people from all ages, but I find that, and this is absolutely fascinating, because I find that I will get older men who have lots of hobbies and don't necessarily have social skills, and they will find that I'm going to be at a show, like a consumer show where we have lots of DIY things, and they will make their way to the show specifically to meet me and tell me how much 3D Printing Nerd has inspired them. And usually, we'll get a picture, I'll put my arm around them, and sometimes they're shaking, they're so nervous, but they were so inspired. They broke the mold and went out and, well, took a picture with me and met me and told me how much I had inspired them.
Yeah.
And so I think that we're absolutely reaching 50 and over. I think we're absolutely reaching these people. And I don't know how many of those are actually, I don't know how many 50-year-olds are starting a college career, right? I don't know how many of them are starting college and looking to learn for the next 4 to 8 years.
It's a lot more than you'd think.
Is it really?
Not through the degree program track, but on our professional training courses, our learner distribution is actually the number one population are folks who are in the end stage of their career, 45 and up.
Sure.
And then number two are folks at the very entry level. It's that in between that tend to say, we're doing our work, we're just focused on that, I don't want to learn.
That's so cool.
Well, part of it too is also that a lot of technology has changed, jobs have become redundant, and so it's a re-education of the workforce, which is the most important part that I think additive is playing. And like you mentioned that earlier too, in the United States, manufacturing has shifted in a major way. Globally it's changed in a lot of places, but additive is a new technology for a lot of people, and we're using it to re-educate the workforce because it's supplementing careers and skills and the way we do business, the way we build our buildings, the way we handle medicine, the way we handle all sorts of stuff, food, clothing, fashion, everything you see here, it's all part of this re-education and people constantly learning. And so all these resources combined together are allowing the evolution to continue.
Yeah, the only thing I see, when I see a lot of these middle-sized companies in Germany where you have really old workforce from time to time, and they're super well educated on a technical basis, but if it comes to, let's say, IT stuff or new methods like AI or even use the new software we are looking at in 3D printing, they have difficulties to do so. Because we don't want to attract only the engineers, already ready engineers, we also want to attract those who have a usual education and work as technicians for years. So are there programs at MIT, for example, to attract these people and to support them in doing the shift?
Yeah, I think that's a thing that we struggle with in our online courses is folks, maybe they won't struggle with the content, but they'll just struggle with navigating the platform, with using an online platform versus the way that they're used to working. And I think, to be honest, the best solution we found, I don't think it's a perfect solution, is just to spend more time with them, to have office hours, to build video tutorials, really just try to figure out what are the pain points and make it easy. In the long run, and this is true both for folks who are less tech savvy as well as, honestly, one population that's almost never talked about in engineering are folks with disabilities.
Yeah.
I think there are some tools that we can build, AR, VR-based tools, things like haptic CAD devices that are just sort of emerging now that might make things a little bit easier, a little bit more accessible for a very broad population, including older workers.
I'd like to add something here. Back to the numbers you showed. You showed that there is, in 2024, 129 to 1 people versus offers of jobs. So we see that the problem is not in numbers of 1,000 subscribers or million subscribers or a lot of people. It's about the skills and the talents,
Yeah.
so the quality of the individuals.
Yeah.
And in fact, if one machine in this hall now is a breakthrough, this whole Formnext is going to be interested in it. This will be the focus, even though maybe one person worked on it or two. So the numbers are not the problem. The problem is, how do you get a skill transferred to a person that will make him or her into a real talent,
Yeah.
a patient talent,
Yeah.
someone who is persevering.
Yeah.
And
Maybe I can add to that, because we also asked our members how they train their people, and most of them do it on the job.
Yeah.
And we asked them, do you think there should be more further education? And they said yes. And we asked them, but have you ever brought your people to a course? And then they said no. So there seems to be also a lack between wanting and doing, and also I think within the daily life and working, it's quite difficult to add something on top.
But
And
that's exactly where I come back to Joel and David. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
So in my opinion, if you want to attract, and they are already attracted, as we heard, and you want to get them into like a professional education or on the job, wouldn't it be necessary that you work together and transfer the whole thing in terms of, we get them into, as experts, how to communicate to those guys, because they have already access to them. You know what I mean? In order to attract them to do an additional education. Because sometimes you see so many companies looking for talents and they produce their own videos without talking to, in my opinion, experts. They talk to a good marketing agency and then they do a video, and everybody like the German military, for example, where you are super inspired to get a soldier, but it's not really attracting the young people because it's so far away from reality. So wouldn't it be good to make cooperations here?
Yes, we will work with MIT. It's okay. Yes, we will do it.
No, you know what I mean.
But no, I completely agree.
I'm
But
not
we just
pushing
did a whole
contract,
series
but-
with UC Berkeley.
Yeah.
Like we did a whole thing with their microengineering lab at UC Berkeley and Virgin Galactic and 3D printing in outer space. I mean, and we were going over computed axial lithography. And we went through all the CAL options and everything like that. And that's, we have other stuff coming in the future with other universities and breaking it down. And the results of what we did, the university got a ton of attention from students that want to be engaged with it. They were able to highlight the papers that they did and got more, accessibility, more viewing. Like Taylor just sent out another thing too about like everyone now knows about the research that they're doing, and that's not just attracting talent, but it's also validating the work they do, and it's also getting them more resources to grow and do more and stuff like that. And I think it all works together because we all have the same goal here.
Yeah.
We all just want to make the world better, and this is a great tool for that.
Yeah, and there's one more thing that we do. So we also talk to teachers. So we prepare, for example, our members prepare information on additive manufacturing and education material on additive manufacturing for the teachers well, at least in Germany. And I think that's also a way to get students to be able to work on AM and
This
learn
is a
something.
hugely important point, I think, is that giving educators tools to be able to incorporate additive into the course into their coursework,
basically. Right?
And not just from machine vendors have some things, and it's clearly from like sort of a sales vertical point of view, but maybe to your point, David, about open source and opening hearts. I like the expression, regardless of what you think, Joel. Maybe there's an opportunity there to build resources for educators themselves, because the story of someone buying a printer and then it collecting dust because they left is totally common, especially at the high school level.
Yeah.
Why do you get the final words?
I wanna I thank you first for your for the point you brought up about connecting, and I think it's very important from the get-go, from the beginning, to show those students, their kids, career paths, like Arena does, so that they know what to expect. Because we don't lack people, we just lack the right people.
Yeah.
And I think this is where I would love to collaborate with you, so that you can bring some of your students to the lab and show them what we do, what we struggle with, so they have an idea of what to expect.
Yeah, very good. Thank you,
And hopefully
guys.
inspire them.
I think the five of you will definitely inspire the people, that's for sure. Thank you so much for being our guest here today on our stage for the fruitful discussion. We haven't got to the final cooperation yet, but it's a good start in my opinion, so thank you very much for your input. So ladies and gentlemen, and kids at home, you listen to that. If you're 8 years and older, please step into additive manufacturing. No, thank you very much for listening us here at the panel discussion. You can consume now some highlight, then we go into the lunch break, and I will all see you back here at 2:15. Looking forward to it. See you there. Bye-bye.